We're live on ESPN FC on YouTube, reacting to today's Champions League action. Bayern Munich beating Paris Saint-Germain and going through in the Champions League, and Milan, after that 1-0 win in the first leg, getting a goalless draw in North London and knocking out Spurs. Mark Donaldson alongside Mark Ogden and Gabriele Marcotti. And Mark Ogden in Munich, will start with you. You watched Bayern against PSG today. Matthijs de Ligt with a super goal-mouth clearance, and after that, it really looked like it was just Bayern toying with PSG at a time. It was a comfortable win in the end.
It was. We know that PSG had people missing, Neymar being the obvious one. But I just thought that PSG tonight, despite the fact that Neymar was missing, I thought that would have made them better balanced. But I just didn't see enough of a threat from PSG. Mbappe was talking a good game prior to this about how PSG were favourites and this was the game we were going to prove it. And Mbappe was really quiet. He didn't really have that impact that we saw in Qatar. But the same thing with Lionel Messi. I thought Messi again was really poor. And this could be his last ever Champions League game. If his contract expires in the summer at PSG, we don't know what he's going to do yet. He might stay, but this is probably the last chance of winning it this season. And he might be in MLS or Saudi Arabia this time next year. So this could be it. This could be his farewell. And he didn't really go out with the bang. PSG for me, the Vitinha chance obviously was a big chance, but we were never convincing. And Bayern didn't have to do a lot to win the game. It was fairly straightforward.
Gab, this is a similar story over recent years. Loads of money, world-class players, but they can't do anything in the Champions League. Where do they go from here, Paris Saint-Germain?
All right, I am contractually obliged to say this, otherwise Jules will have my rear end on the Gab and Jules show tomorrow. They did reach the Champions League final. So I wouldn't say they've done nothing, but you're right. What is it, like 5 early exits now from the Champions League? Sometimes cliches are accurate. This club is a bit of a zoo. It's not. I don't think it's well run on the sporting side. On the commercial side, they're phenomenal. They built a big brand, but fundamentally, when you look at the changes in terms of the directors of football, when you look at the changes over the years in terms of the managers, a lot of this I find is unnecessary. It doesn't seem like there's there's much of a plan, or as football folk like to say, a project. And they have a lot of money, but guess what? What is it, like more than half their wage bill goes on the same 3 players? One of whom is injured, one of whom walks around the pitch because that's what he does at this stage of his career and is still very effective, but you have to have all the pieces around him, and they don't have the pieces around him. This team isn't built for Messi. It's not really built for Mbappe either. And so if they don't overwhelm you with talent against a better collective, as we saw against Bayern, they pay a heavy price.
When you look at the side, Mark, that was picked by Bayern Munich and the talent that they had on the bench, they are one of the favourites for the Champions League. And they're a team you do not want to face in the next round, are you?
Yeah, they are. They're a good, strong team, but I thought Musiala was exceptional tonight. I thought he was the best player. But I think Bayern tonight, they didn't have to be at their best. I thought Thomas Muller had a great game, but Muller, he seems to have been around forever, and we've written him off. I don't know how many times, but I thought Goretzka and him in midfield, made it work. I do think Bayern will probably be outside that bracket of the real favourites to win it. I think they're not Real Madrid. They're not one of the English teams. Maybe City go through. I just think Bayern lacks something right now. Maybe it's a striker. I don't think Choupo-Moting is going to win you a Champions League, but they didn't need to be the best team in the Champions League to knock PSG out. And I think people always talk about, well, PSG, it's hard for PSG because the league's too easy. They don't get tested very often. Well, when was the last time Bayern Munich didn't win their league? They seem to have it quite easy as well, but they know how to win in Europe. And I just think there's something about the pedigree of the club. The club knows how to win these games. You can feel it around the club. It's a club that expects to be where it is in the Champions League. And PSG, they want to be there. They're feeling their way around, and it's never very convincing. It's just, you look at the French teams in World Cups and Euros. France produce more talent than most countries. They're an amazing country for producing talent, but their club teams never seem to deliver. So, maybe the PSG philosophy going forward should be, let's not bring in all these expensive superstars from overseas. Let's try and get the best French talent, keep it in France, and make that a really, really strong team in Ligue 1. Pay them big money, and if translate the international dominance to the club scene. But I just don't think they'll do that. I think it's not glamorous enough for PSG and their owners.
Well,
Gab.
but that's the thing, though, Mark. They're running a business here, right? They're building a brand. I mean, I'm going to put my contrarian hat on, my invisible contrarian hat on, for a second. Mark's totally right if the goal is winning games, but at the same time, they have to generate revenue. They have to build their brand. They went for the glamour, and this is how they've been operating. You know, right back to the days of early on when they got Ibrahimovic and Thiago Silva. And, you know, all those super talented French players that you talk about, and I agree with you, they produce, you know, more great players than just about anybody. Are they going to be big brands? Are they going to, you know, Mbappe aside, are they going to be able to move the needle if all they do is play in Ligue 1 week in, week out? You know, I feel like a lot of these people become stars once they leave France. If Conte had never left, if Tchouameni, you know, if they'd all gone to Paris Saint-Germain, would we think of them in the same way we do now? And I think that's been part of the equation. And again, maybe that's a failing of ownership. I can see that it was necessary for them to do that, but they opted to go for the star route and pay through the nose for it. And this is where they're left now.
Paris Saint-Germain and Lionel Messi right now go together. But at the end of the season, when he decides on his next move, Lionel Messi, Mark, what do Paris Saint-Germain have? What can they offer Lionel Messi if they continually fail, whether it's at the final hurdle, the round of 16, or wherever it is in the Champions League? Why should he stay at Paris Saint-Germain?
I think you turn the question around and say, what can he offer them? Because, you know, he's 35 now, he's 36 in the summer. Lionel Messi, for me, an amazing player, untouchable in terms of what he's doing in his career, but he's now approaching his 36th birthday, and he's not the player he was. So him being at PSG is a vanity project on PSG's part. It hasn't worked out, has it? I mean, last season not taking the round of 16 against Real Madrid. This season not taking Bayern Munich in the round of 16. Over the 2 legs, he did next to nothing. Now, he had a fantastic World Cup, but the Champions League is an altogether different level. Sort of the knockout stages. This is the elite. This is the pinnacle of the game. And Messi now is no longer the player that can have the impact that he expected against the Bayern Munich or a Man City or Real Madrid. So if PSG get their hard head on, they'll think, well, what is Messi giving us? Well, he's giving them the brand recognition, like Gab said. He's the biggest star in the world alongside Ronaldo. So that's what he's giving them. But if they want to win things at the football club, they have to move him on. I think move him on and find a way. Look, their brand will grow bigger if they win major trophies like the Champions League. So it's a catch-22 situation. How do you do that without these superstar players? Do you build a team? It's a question they've got to answer. And I suspect, like Gab says, that they'll back the brand rather than the football.
I was going to ask Gab, what's more important to them right now, to the owners, the Paris Saint-Germain brand, or what happens on the field of play? Because without anything happening on the field of play, that affects the brand.
Yeah, and those things go hand in hand. I mean, until a couple of weeks ago, obviously they feel the brand is established enough that they need to move forward on the field of play. But equally, given the news that Nasser Al-Khelaifi is being investigated, given the facts that Qatari ownership group is seriously looking to buy Manchester United, thereby furthering speculation that they might divest themselves of Paris Saint-Germain. I think I agree with Mark that the brand is built up. Now, Paris Saint-Germain are a thing. They need to follow with success on the pitch. And I'm sure there's going to be people in France and elsewhere who say, hang on a minute, what happened to that Super League thing? Because frankly, we play in Ligue 1. A lot of our guys essentially half-ass it every week, and we still win the league. Do we need more of that motivation? Do we need to play against tougher opposition week in, week out? Maybe that Super League idea isn't such a bad thing from their perspective. So I think it's going to reopen those debates. But it is really hard when, you go back and you see, over 12 months, you talked about Messi there. How many really top opponents has Messi had an opportunity to face this season between, Ligue 1, the French Cup, and the Champions League? And I think the answer is not many.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.